It's the year 2000X. It's the mid-2000s. Mom's done working for the day, so you get on the family's Windows XP computer and load up your favorite game, 3D Pinball for Windows. The sights, the sounds, it all fills you with this giddy joy you can only feel as a kid in the 2000s. You mash the buttons furiously to get the ball up and bumping away as the points rack up, and wait a minute, this isn't Windows XP! We all have those PC games we loved playing as kids, right? I just got done reviewing one of my favorite childhood PC games, Hyperbole, and I thought it would be nice to briefly look through some more of those quirky games I used to play, and I'm covering a wide range of games here. Okay, that's a lie, half of these are Skunk Studios games, and most of the rest are edutainment games for young children. Please don't mark my video as made for kids, YouTube. But I'm being serious. Every game I'm about to show you, I played when I was just a tiny lad who broke computers so often it would drive people insane. I was the kid that tried to delete the Windows folder, but enough about the fragility of Windows, let's do a 2000s throwback, ArtisIan style. First up is a game I'm sure every late 90s and early 2000s kid knows, 3D Pinball for Windows, Space Cadet. That's a mouthful, so I'm just going to call it 3D Pinball for the rest of the video. This game is a Windows bundled version of the Space Cadet table from Full Tilt Pinball, a game released in the 1990s for Windows 95. The game was bundled with Windows NT 4.0 through Windows XP, but was dropped during the fiasco that was Windows Vista's development. Oh goody, another game that got the axe thanks to Windows Vista. Full Tilt included 3 tables, Space Cadet was only one of them, and I have absolutely no experience with the other tables because I only played the one bundled with Windows. Luckily, the game is playable on modern systems because the game was reverse engineered recently. Thanks to the efforts of one K4ZMU2A, try saying that 5 times fast, 3D Pinball is playable on Windows 32-bit, Windows 64-bit, Linux, macOS, and basically any other platform that has the time dedicated to it. I foresee a Haiku OS version fairly soon. The macOS version is how I'll be playing the game today, although I do have the original Windows version on hand as well. The game is straight up pinball. Use the spacebar to launch the ball, then the Z and / keys to control the flippers. You have bumpers, ramps, ball snatchers, and other cool things for the ball to interact with. You can play a few missions during the game by knocking the ball into one of these panels, then following the instructions on the display on the right. Complete a mission and the ring in the middle will start to light up. Doing all of this earns you points, and you have 3 balls to rack up as many points as possible. Just don't hit the arrow keys too much or the table will tilt. Its iconic sound effects and overall feel add to its charm. Knocking that ball around and hearing the table make noises like a real pinball table would is endearing. And it's amazing that something like this could have been made in the early to mid 1990s and still be enjoyable today. There are other pinball games out there, but this is one I always return to. And not just because I recently discovered a debug feature that lets you click and drag the ball wherever you want. It's truly a fun experience. Now, when it comes to the rest of this video, I have a confession to make. Some of the games I wanted to include in this video originally were ones that were too long and would have required their own video to fully showcase, or just flat out did not work on any of my configurations. So, as a result, and because of scheduling conflicts, I moved to Plan B. I intended to make a dedicated Skunk Studios video showcasing a few highlight games from their library, so I merged this video and that idea, which means half the games I show in this video are from Skunk Studios. Without worrying about the consequences of this decision, here's Gutterball.
Are you set to play? Better check your aim. Striking every frame. Watch that Gutterball.
Gutterball is a duology of bowling games released between 2001 and 2004 by Skunk Studios. The original Gutterball is actually the first game I played from them, followed closely by another game that's coming later in this video. I briefly mentioned this game in both versions of my Hyperbole review because it's a bowling game that added its own flavor to the sport. I'm going to cover both games at the same time because aside from the lane themes and other minor differences, they're basically the same game. Gutterball 1 features retro, cosmic, and wacky lanes, while Gutterball 2 features an updated retro lane along with Lotus, Jungle, Iceberg, and completely new wacky lanes. Here's how it works. You can choose between one of a few lanes and customize your ball. The game is then played by using the mouse to move left and right, and then clicking and dragging the mouse and the ball to act like you're throwing it. The faster you swipe when you let go of the mouse button, the harder you throw the ball. From there, you can kind of steer the ball toward the pins by moving the mouse left and right. Gutterball 2 shows you an arrow telling you which way the ball is moving, which is a nice touch. Typically the lanes don't amount to much, just a standard straight shot to the pins. There are some unique features though. The cosmic lane in the first game disables the gravity once you hit the pins, so everything floats away. You can even hit the planets and the decorations in the background and make them fall down. Where are they falling to? The iceberg lane in Gutterball 2 has uneven terrain that makes it hard to roll in a straight line, veering toward hyperbowl territory, and the wacky lane is something else entirely. You get 3 lanes and can choose which one to send the ball toward when you bowl. Some spares are easier to hit by going on different lanes. Just make sure you add force to the ball as you throw it. Scoring is just like normal bowling, but the physics, oh jeez, what is going on here? I throw the ball and it wobbles from left to right. I can't get it to roll in a straight line, and I don't know if this is accidental or on purpose. Do they want me to get strikes or not? Maybe best not to think about it. As well, the ball is supposed to smash the pins apart like Sonic to a Motobug, but everything happens so quickly that I wonder if anything happened at all. This is true in both games. Is this a frame-dependent engine and my computer is too powerful to show a realistic image? Someone please explain what's going on. You know what? I bet it is frame-dependent because I caught something on film that I never expected to. An honest-to-goodness glitch in the first game. I was playing the wacky lane and maybe threw the ball a bit too hard to get a spare. The game thought my ball missed because the pin disappeared at the last moment, gave me a spare anyway, then when I got a strike on the next frame, put a 10 in place of the spare I should have gotten. That was a very peculiar sight. I mean, I've seen my fair share of glitches before, but I've never seen this game glitch. Huh. Another interesting feature is that you can choose what kind of character narrates while you play. I think one of the defaults is someone's impression of Bill Clinton, but there are other unique characters as well. Of course, if you don't want anyone commenting on how terrible your throwing is, you can turn it off. And that's it. Gutterball is honestly a bit more shallow of a game than Hyperbowl was, but it served its purpose. It's actually a much faster game to play, not just because of how quickly the physics run, but because you can actually skip the results and waiting screens just to get a move on to your next bowl. That's a feature I kinda wish Hyperbowl adopted. I wouldn't have been so worn out after each recording session if I could just push through to the next bowl. The game resurfaced in 2011 as Gutterball Golden Pin Bowling, which is a kind of sequel and remake of both games in Unity, with better physics, better graphics, and microtransactions. Of course, Gutterball wasn't Skunk Studios' only hit. They actually made quite a few games, and I'm going to show you a handful of them. First up is QBs. Please tell me I'm not the only one who remembers these guys. QBs is a game featuring cute, colorful cubes that need to be matched in groups of 2 or more. It's essentially a cute version of— oh wait, we're not at that game yet. The game gives you a select grid of QBs, challenging you to clear them all by matching them in groups of 2 or more. You're given 3 clicks to either rotate the board in one direction or randomize the positions. If you manage to clear all the QBs, you get a cute flash animation to watch as a reward. If you clear as much as you can, meaning you made a mistake and left at least 1 QBs in the dark, you pass the stage but you don't get to watch the cartoon. The tube of fluid on the side here acts as a timer. If it reaches the top, you run out of time and have to start over. It's a fun little game that tests your mind with the puzzle of figuring out which way to match the QBs or rotate them to clear them all. And that's all I've got. This really is a small game. And so is the next one. Here comes Sveerz.
Yellow, blue, red, green, Sveerz.
This is an oddball one for sure. Let's take a game about matching groups of cute characters and have it be a Parappa-style call and echo game. And you get this one. There are 4 colors of these Sveerz characters. The giant Sveerz on the rocket ship will call out which colors to click, and it's your job to click Sveerz of those colors in order. If they happen to be in a link, one Sveerz becomes worth extra points. And if Sveerz fall down into a group, you get extra points. As you keep playing, more of them will fall down, so you need to work quickly and remember the instructions. There are some extra kinds of Sveerz, such as ones that blow up in a group or act as walls. The instructions start with just 1 sphere, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. So basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It's amazing, I've got the same combination on my luggage.
Afterward it goes back to 1. I found it becomes more difficult to follow along once 4 Sveerz are called, but your main penalty for messing up is that the number of Sveerz called out goes back to 1. And just like QBs, that's about it. It doesn't take much to explain these games, and there will be one more like that coming soon. What do you get when you mix raccoons with frogs? Don't answer that question. Varmintz is a Frogger clone for PC themed around everyone's least favorite trash pandas. The game is split into worlds with 5 levels each, and each level is played with a different varmint. These varmints are Binky, Shady, Reuben, Bean, and Lulu. The game is played solely with the arrow keys as you guide these rascals past danger, collecting eggs along the way and hitting checkpoints before reaching one of 5 home gates, just like Frogger. The main difference is that each varmint actually has its own stage. But the one thing that's notable about this game is you will die constantly, at least from my experience. The levels are very cramped, more so than any Frogger game I played. The characters' hitboxes are also quite large, so if even a hair touches an enemy, that's it. There are power-ups to mitigate this, such as the Ice Cube to freeze enemies or the invisibility power-up, but all of this is negated about something I'll mention later. Say what you will about the graphics, even though the varmints themselves look great and the enemies look like they were ripped right out of South Park, but if I can't smoothly see where I'm going at what time, I will struggle. And I struggled bad, especially with this fatso over here. Reuben got run over more times than I can count, but I eventually made it. I guess once you learn the enemy's behavior, it becomes easier, but even as a kid, I don't remember making it too far into the game. I don't know what that says about the game's quality, but it's okay, I guess. Until you realize how choppy the frame rate is. I counted the frames after recording the video, and it's about 16 frames per second. Seriously, this is the choppiest frame rate of any game we're seeing on this video. And it's detrimental. Moments where I think I've hopped out of the way turn out to be moments where the game isn't reading inputs, so boom, I die. Poor Reuben. This poor guy died way more times than necessary because of this. If the frame rate was even a solid 30 FPS, we wouldn't be talking about this now. And for now, that's a wrap on the Skunk Studios specific games. But we're not done, because we need to play a game by the company that helped indie devs publish their games, Gamehouse. This is one of their most famous games, Super Collapse 2. So here's a question I bet some of you are asking. Why did I choose Super Collapse 2 as opposed to the original? That's because I barely played the original. 2 was the one I played extensively, so here we are. Collapse is a series of games where blocks are formed and pushed in from the bottom up, and the player needs to clear as many of them as possible by clicking on groups of 3 or more of the same color. The game keeps going until the number of lines left reaches 0, and then you are awarded bonus points based on how much empty space you left on the game board. This is the game I was thinking of when I played QBs earlier. There are 4 main modes: Traditional, where the making of new blocks is continuous; Puzzle, where the player is challenged to clear all the blocks in a given formation; Relapse, where blocks come in from both the bottom and the top; and Strategy, where blocks come in every time you clear a group of blocks, requiring slower and more methodical approaches to the situation. Which stinks, because you want to know how I always played Collapse even as a kid? I'm serious. I would hover my mouse all over the board and just mash that button. If I got something, great. If I didn't, I look somewhere else. It also helps that if you find yourself to be impatient, you can make the next set of blocks appear on your own. Nice touch. That strategy, however, becomes detrimental once you play strategy mode, because blocks come in every time you clear a group. If you mash the button, you'll lose in 5 seconds. So yeah, that's Super Collapse 2. Not much to write home about, but it doesn't need to. It's quick and pure arcade fun. And speaking of arcade fun, let me ask you something. Do you guys remember Marble Madness? That arcade game where you guided a marble through an isometric maze to reach the goal? Somebody in the mid-2000s did, and Hamsterball was the result of it. Hamsterball is a spiritual successor to Marble Madness released in the mid-2000s by Raptisoft. Most people know these guys because of Chuzzle, which is a game I'll cover in another video. The player uses either the mouse, keyboard, or a game controller to roll this cute little hamster through an obstacle course to reach the goal. Unlike the original Marble Madness, the full scope of the 3D engine is used, meaning moving platforms, enemies, and other gimmicks not possible in the original arcade game are on display here. The game even features music by our good friend from the Bejeweled games, Peter Hajba. And I'll say now that the graphics and sound are the best things about this game. I like this game about as much as I like Jetsons the movie. I don't. Boy, do I have some issues with this game. Let's jump to the beginning here. The game has 12 levels, and you play through them one by one. Starting in the warm-up race, it's an easy romp as players get used to the controls. You're given a generous amount of time to get to the end. Next is the beginner race, and the problems I have with this game have already reared their ugly heads. First of all, the game adds some extra time to the time you had left from the previous course. That means if you just scraped by with milliseconds to spare, you aren't getting much more time to finish the level. That's not a problem early on, but as the levels get more difficult, the game starts giving you less time than before to finish them, and they expect you to complete these stages within 50 to 70 seconds left on the timer. I had to play the pipsqueak mode to even show you most of these levels. Okay, to be fair, Marble Madness did this too, but at least it was an arcade game and was justified in doing so. Hamsterball shouldn't be so rough. Anyway, the beginner race is easy enough. It introduces you to your first AI-controlled 8-ball opponent that tries to knock you off the level. If you're playing the normal mode anyway, in Pipsqueak mode these are removed. This is a concept also taken from Marble Madness. Bumpers also help guide the hamster through the level, and you discover how easy it is to fall off the level. Oh, don't get me started on the fragility of the ball, it can't even fall a short distance without cracking like an egg. It's crazy. The intermediate race ramps up the level geometry quite a bit, giving you more tunnels and winding roads alongside the 8 balls returning from before. The level also has mousetraps that will send you flying if you're not careful. Next up is the Dizzy Race, with lots of loops around poles and rotating platforms right by some winding turns. Oh boy, you gotta be careful on this one. Oh, and there's tar that will slow you down if you hit it. Next up is the Tower Race, which adds more complexity to the terrain and gimmicks while adding more things that can destroy our Hamsterball. I think somebody didn't get much work after The Empire Strikes Back. And guess what? It's easy to fall off this level too.
Well, it's downhill from here.
Next up is the Up Race, which is completely vertical and has Jetsons-style vacuum tubes and revving machines that almost make a spin dash sound effect. What's crazy is, at the end, the hamster is supposed to land perfectly fine after this ramp. But there's a chance the ball could break here too. Also, someone please tell me what happened here. As far as I can tell, I didn't hit anything except solid ground. So why did the hamster act like I fell off a ledge? The Neon Race actually looks pretty cool. A nice take on dynamic lighting from a mid-2000s game. Not much else to say about it really, lots of fun with colors. But hold your horses because the fun stops here. By this point, you're so low on time that you're just starting to scrape by some levels. And then we enter the Expert Race, which takes everything you just learned and adds another 50 things to worry about. It's here that you'll find your hamster rolling off ledges when you swear you were holding the opposite direction to slow down, and this hammer will crush you like a pancake, and these fans have no mercy. Oh, and there are also buzzsaws. What, did Dr. Eggman design this place? Oh, and this ramp doesn't always work. And guess what? I barely made it to the goal, which means I'm guaranteed to fail the next race, the Odd Race. Apart from falling off despite holding the opposite direction again, this stage plays with gravity. And it's okay, if you have time to reach the goal. The problem is you're basically stuck if you fail here. You have the option to go back to previous levels by rolling back, but if you're at a certain skill level, you're basically locked into getting stuck at a certain level because you just aren't good enough. And that's the biggest issue I have with this game. You're not given nearly enough time in later levels to get through. Even if you complete certain levels flawlessly, you gradually run out of time. It's like the game was designed to be an arcade game, and they forgot to give people ways of actually finishing the game. How did people unlock all the tracks? By this point I got frustrated with the core game and moved on to the multiplayer. Hamsterball actually has a decent multiplayer mode. 2 players can race through a level to see who can get to the goal first, or up to 4 players can try to knock each other off a small arena. Points are awarded to people who stay on the arena when someone else falls. This is what I did when I couldn't keep playing the main game. I only had access to the first 3 arenas because of insane unlock requirements, so let's run through them. The warm-up arena is a basic circle, nothing to write home about. The beginner arena has an 8-ball in the middle and bumpers on the side. The 8-ball counts for points too, so it's wise to be wary of its whereabouts. The intermediate arena is wider and also has mouse traps that make you go. The game also has a time trial mode, which I think is the best way to play the levels. The only problem is that you have to play the main game to unlock them. Come on, that's just insult to injury. And on that note, that's a wrap on Hamsterball. Okay, there's one more action game I want to look at, but I'm pushing it till the end. You'll understand when I get there. For now, let's look at a few edutainment games I played when I was really young. To start, I hope everyone here knows Sesame Street, right? You know, Sesame Street. The kids show with the cast of iconic Muppets that's been going since the 60s? That's Sesame Street. In the 90s and 2000s, they released a whole bunch of PC games for kids of several ages. I had a few of them, one of them being Elmo's Preschool, but I didn't want to stoop to that level for this video. Today, I wanted to cover 2 storybook games I used to have, which featured Cookie Monster as your host in his library. Except I was only able to get one of them running. So here's Monsterpiece Theater, the Three Grouchketeers. This is a story about the three Grouchketeers, those being Zoe, Grover, and Telly. King Oscar the Grouch orders them to retrieve the royal pig because the mud ball is almost here and the pig is missing. Grover, Telly, and Zoe attempt to sing to Oscar to entertain him, but he demands that they retrieve the royal pig instead. I don't blame Oscar for not wanting to hear Telly sing about how much he loves triangles, though.
Oh, what?
You call that music? I'd rather listen to a rusty suit of armor fall down a flight of stairs.
So the three set off, but not before Oscar gives them pieces of royal junk to help them on their quest. The game allows you to just read the story, or play some puzzles as you go. As this is a kid's game, the puzzles aren't too taxing on an adult brain. They amount to finding the object or animal being described, putting a certain amount of bricks into a machine, or matching the correct shape to a slot. I'll get into more detail as we find them. Anyway, throughout the story, you can click on certain objects in the background to make them talk or do something. You can make Grover, Telly, and Zoe talk as well, and everyone is voiced by the same actors from the show. You can hear Grover try to understand what's going on, Zoe being her usual cheerful self, except when she's not, and Telly singing about his love of triangles, which I don't remember from the show. Then you can click on background characters, like this frog here that turns into a prince.
Ribbit. Oh, knee-deep, knee-deep.
What on Sega Saturn was that? Anyway, the three Grouchketeers follow the pig's tracks outside the castle to the walls around the town. Somehow the darn thing walked over them, so for our friends to get over, we have to make a triangle from objects around the town. Seriously, please tell me Telly's obsession over triangles wasn't part of the show. Anyway, the three somehow manage to make a full triangle from these pieces, and they reach the top of the wall. However, it's here that Zoe gets discouraged, but Grover and Telly sing to her to help her feel better. And they can't seem to cheer hooray 3 times like they're supposed to. This field has some of the weirdest scenery, such as this windmill spitting hay bales out, and giant eggs, chickens falling to the farmhouse, and sheep that play soccer. Fair enough, I guess. The three travelers then reach the seaside and have to help the animals find their home, which was Zoe's specialty because she loves animals. Just drag the animal to their proper home, and that's it. They reach the forest, and now Grover is the one getting nervous. Once on later, and he's back to normal though. They find a wide canyon, but there's no bridge. Thankfully, there's a bridge making machine. Because using the bricks themselves isn't enough, we need to throw them in the machine that seems to have a vendetta against Grover to make a bridge out of balloons? Okay. I do like that Grover constantly tries to get out of the way of the machine's output, but he can just never seem to win. Silly stuff like that. They reach the top of the mountain, and lo and behold, they find the royal pig. Turns out he was just practicing for the mud ball. However, he's so in the zone that the three Grouchketeers' presence proves detrimental.
Hello, Mr. Royal Pig!
Now, wait just a minute. That's the second time tonight they've used a goofy scream.
Three's a charm.
Now that the royal pig is stuck in the mud, it's up to the Grouchketeers to use their royal junk to get him out, which they do. Then the mud puddle slides down into the castle, and they jump in. Why did they pull him out if the mud led back to the castle anyway? That leap in stupidity aside, the gang makes it back to the castle just as Oscar started to experience an emotion other than grumpiness. But now that the pig is back and there's actually mud, the mud ball can begin. But not before he messes around in Oscar's throne room.
Nice. Turn out the lights, why don't you?
Whoa, that was awesome! We gotta see that again. Alright, we should get going to the mud ball. After one more time. Okay, now we're at the mud ball, and it amounts to the user dranking instruments to the pig for him to play. Who knew he was so talented that he can play the guitar, violin, clarinet, windpipes, harmonica, trumpet, saxophone, and xylophone flawlessly? It is a nice touch that he plays variations of the Sesame Street theme. And poor Telly, he tried so hard here.
1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 4, 5, 1. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. 1, 2, 3. Oh no.
And that's a wrap. It's Sesame Street, so I shouldn't expect anything too intellectual from the story, but for its audience and budget, it works. I enjoyed it as a kid, and there were moments that still got a chuckle out of me today. So, well done, team. When it comes to edutainment games, in the 90s and 2000s, I doubt there was a brand I knew more than JumpStart. I had 4 JumpStart games when I was younger: Preschool, Numbers, Letters, and Music. However, I lost the CD for Preschool, and my Letters disc was gunked up, so I couldn't play it very much. However, the 2 games I did play a lot were Numbers and Music. Let's begin with Numbers, shall we? Uh-oh, I gotta choose a grade level. Well, since 3rd year of university isn't on the list, I'll choose the highest option I can, 3rd grade. Ah yes, the opening cutscenes. JumpStart games typically had great animation for their time. I apologize for the scan lines though, I don't remember those being there when I played the game back in the 2000s. Basically, the story here is that it's snack time, and our resident dachshund Frankie heads down to a secret James Bond vault to snack on holy biscuits, Batman! Well, Frankie has a huge party and eats every single biscuit. He then promptly falls asleep, and his dream consciousness tells the player that they need to fill the vault back up again. Oh, so he eats all the biscuits and it's our job to get more? Thanks, man. So, level with me here a second. Dogs are hungry little stinkers, but they have their limits. Frankie tells us that we have to earn a total of 300 biscuits to fill up the vault. That means it was already full of 300 biscuits! Look how, Garfield, you have competition! There are 3 games to play. The first game is a Wild West bone slinging game. The sheriff cat holds up a number and you have to throw a bone at the panel that has the math problem that gives the sheriff's answer. These problems can be addition or subtraction. Remember, this is an early education game. Of course there won't be any multiplication or division here. Each round has 3 panels with problems that add or subtract to the correct number, but you get 10 bones total just in case you miss. But you won't be missing too much because it's really easy for repeat problems to show up, especially as the numbers get larger. If you play well, the sheriff will give you extra biscuits. I didn't work my way up to 100 biscuits in this game because I honestly got bored. The second game takes place in outer space. These UFOs need to be filled with asteroids with the correct numbers on them. The control panel gives you an answer to a problem you must write out yourself with the asteroids. Click on the satellites to either add or subtract, then put in the numbers you want to add or subtract. If the answer is correct, the UFO will move on, and the next one will be loaded. You know what's distracting though? All the sound effects are ripped right out of the Jetsons. The final game is a quest for buried treasure on an island, pirate style. A famous pirate's parrot will buy Frankie on her quest for biscuits. That's not going in the final video, is it? This game is all about putting the correct numbers in a sequence. As in, you have to figure out how many numbers each step is counting by, then navigate the island to find the missing pieces. Once you finish the sequence, you get a piece of the map to the treasure, and when you have all 6, you need to do one more sequence finishing puzzle to get the treasure. Then the process starts over again. It's a simple concept, but Frankie walks so slow that I get bored easily. Maybe that's why I didn't remember this one too well. At any time in the main menu, you can click on the vault to see how far you've gotten. When you're here, ah!
That means let's get back to work in space talk. You need to fill all of the vault with biscuits to win.
Never do that again! And that's all for JumpStart Numbers. So let's move on to music. I come from a musical family, so it makes sense that one of the kids' games I got as a kid revolved around music. This time around, we follow a bunny named Hopsalot, who's showing off his antique gramophone when it starts spitting out sour notes. And I mean they look and feel sour. As old Hop checks his grandpop's noisemaker, he gets sucked in all of a sudden. As he's falling, we hear some characters singing about how making music is the best thing ever, while this Dr. Neo Cortex knockoff complains that he doesn't understand why people like music so much. Hop lands in the middle of the land of music, where he finds out that Dr. Cortex knockoff is named Sir Sour Note, and he's been shooting off sour notes at the concert hall, so horrible music is played all over the land. Because these native inhabitants can't seem to do anything about it, it's up to Hops and us to pluck all the sour notes out of the land of music and restore harmony. And melody. And the drum beat, you get the point. Hopsalot gets to explore the entire land of music as he looks for residents that he can help clear of sour notes. His walking speed, however, leaves a lot to be desired. He walks so slowly, and you have to keep the mouse on the path for him to go anywhere. It gets annoying after a while. Plus, you have to walk hops to the characters to actually play the activities. It means stuff takes longer to do, and for someone quickly getting footage for a video he almost ran out of time for, I couldn't handle it very well. So while you can meet several characters on your journey, there aren't that many unique activities. There are about, 5 variations of the drum beat game with 3 different characters, 3 variations of the same melody game with the same character, and different songs for the other games. So get ready to do the same thing over and over again, which you'll be doing anyway because if you do well enough in an activity, you get the chance to catch a sour note. Click on one with the mouse and drag it to Hopslot's bag. Don't be fooled by there being 2 or 3 notes at a time though, because you can only bag 1 at a time. To get the rest, you have to keep playing. That means you're spending a lot of time doing the same stuff over and over again. If you're learning how to do it and are getting better, that's fine. But if you've already mastered this stuff or just can't grasp it, then the games become tedious. There are 3 characters that challenge the player to play a beat with the spacebar. There's this gorilla who has a serious voice problem and different kinds of drums. Then there's the hippo who taps on her belly to keep a beat. Then you have this goat who bangs on his drum with a beat. The goal of the game is to follow the on-screen beat at about the same tempo as the character. The beat becomes more complex as you keep succeeding. Unrelated to them is the cool cat, who has a full drum set and lets you jam out. There aren't any sour notes here, so just play to your heart's desire. Next, there's Melody, who challenges you to play notes on pigs and birds? Who is this girl, a relative of Marvin Suggs? Ow, 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 ow. Anyway, you'll see her fairly often as she plays her instruments in a melody that she wants you to repeat. The pattern becomes more complex, then when it reaches its limit, she gives you a new melody. She also appears sometimes to let you create your own melody, so kinda like the Cool Cat game, you can just mess around here. Those icons are marked as yellow on the map, by the way. Green ones are activities where there are still sour notes to collect, red ones mean you found all the sour notes. The musical instruments have also lost their voices in the mix-up, but there are birds that are able to perfectly mimic the sounds that each instrument makes. In this game, it's your job to listen to the noises the birds are making and match them with the correct instrument. You start by having only one instrument to find a voice for, then you start getting 2 or 3 at a time. They do a nice job of telling you what family each instrument is in to give you a clue on how it may sound, especially the difference between woodwinds and brass instruments. Come to think of it, I may have just had a revelation here. I used to play the French horn in grade school, and I had people ask me why I chose that instead of a trumpet or a saxophone. I said that something just attracted me to the French horn. I think I know what that something was. JumpStart music. The very first instrument you see in this particular game is the French horn, acting as the example for how to play. It sounded different, it looked really cool, and when I saw one in real life, I just had to try it. Thus, I was my school's only French horn player until about my junior year. Just a little fun side tangent I wanted to share. Next up is this game with the monkey from the intro. You're shown a sheet of music that gets messed up thanks to 1 or 2 sour notes. The player has to listen to the song to figure out where the wrong note is. Unfortunately, I found this too easy. Since I played French horn, as I mentioned before, I can read music, and it was ridiculously easy to find the wrong note. I can understand how this would be difficult for a child who hasn't even touched a recorder, but for me, yeah, too easy. And that's about it. As you scour the entire land of music, which takes up several areas to the left and right of your starting point, you'll find that you're doing basically the same stuff over and over again until you gather all the sour notes. I didn't finish the game in time for this video, so I have no idea what happens at the end. I do know that as you continue collecting sour notes, you see clips of Sir Sour Note watching your progress and trying to launch more sour notes to keep you at bay. But we know that by the end, it'll be in vain because we stop him. Those music activities got me thinking about another game that featured call and echo style music gameplay. Actually, it's got a bunch of other things too. Thinkin Things, that is. I assure you this is a real game you're looking at. Thinkin Things was a series of at least 3 collections of minigames created by Edmark that challenged a kid's intellect and creativity in several ways. I only had the first of these collections, I know nothing about the other 2. I was able to play this on Windows when I was a kid, but for some reason Windows XP wouldn't run it this time around. Maybe it only works on Windows 95 and 98. Luckily, the game released as a dual Windows and macOS CD, so I fired up Sheepshaver to show you guys the game today. And here we are at the home screen. There are 6 activities to play. Let's first talk to Oranga Banga, a drummer.
Hey there, I'm Oranga.
The 2 ways you can play are either to jam out with your own beat, kind of like the Cool Cat activities in JumpStart Music, or he can challenge you to play the same beat he does. You can set a difficulty slider depending on how complex you want the drum beats to be. And hey, is that dark mode? Wow, Thinkin Things predated modern OSs by decades! All joking aside, turning on dark mode means that whenever Oranga plays the drums, the lights are out, so you have to match the beat by remembering what each drum sounds like. Next up is the Toonie Loon. Yes, that's actually his name.
Hi there, I'm the Toonie Loon.
He's a mallet instrument player, kind of like Melody in JumpStart Music. And the same rules apply here. You can either jam out to your own melody and have him play back what you wrote, or he can challenge you to play certain notes with the lights on or off. You can choose between a glockenspiel, glasses, hollow logs, strings, or chickens? Oh great, now we got another character that's channeling their inner Marvin Suggs. I don't have much else to say about this. So here's the Super Mario World theme as played by the Toonie Loon. Next up is the Feathered Friends. Here, you're given the ability to make a feathered friend with one of 4 colors, one of 4 patterns, one of 4 hats, and one of 4 pairs of shoes. There are 2 modes of play here. You can create your own feathered friends, or you can create one that finishes a lineup based on the designs of the other birds. If they differ in one area, choose the one that's not been chosen yet. If they all wear the same shoes, keep it that way. That sort of thing. I kinda wish there were more options, but for a young child, 4x4 is plenty. After that, we take a trip to the Fribbles To Go store, which sells Fribbles to go. These abominations are called Fribbles, and they each have unique characteristics that make them appealing to some of the craziest characters you've ever seen. Some of the characters that drop by include a surfer dude, a guy from Boston, an English woman who sounds like a man pretending to be a girl, and an Irish man. Anyway, they want Fribbles to exact specifications. Some want specific colors, some want specific hairstyles, and some want plain, striped, or spotted Fribbles. Depending on the difficulty slider, these instructions can become quite complex. Oh, and there are 3 ways for people to order Fribbles. First, clicking on the door makes someone show up at the door. There, you hear them ask for what they want, and you also see a visual representation of the instructions. You can also click on the telephone to hear someone ask for a Fribble, but you don't get an instruction sheet. Clicking on the fax machine gives a printout of instructions, but no audio. Listen to or read the instructions, then choose the correct Fribble to give your customer, and you know how to play the game. The final 2 games are more abstract in nature. First is Flying Shapes. You can choose a selection of primitive shapes here, and are allowed to rotate, resize, and reposition them in any way you desire. Some of the examples show that you can make some decently cool artwork with them, but my attempts to recreate anything from one of my drawings proved fruitless. When you're used to more complex programs, it's hard to jump backwards sometimes. Also, these shapes make noises. The last activity is Flying Spheres. You can choose from these colored spheres and throw them around like so. You get to choose different backgrounds and colors as well, and the size of the spheres change with the background, like they're getting closer and further away. I didn't see too much creative value in this as a kid, but I got a kick out of the examples. Some of the music in this game is just plain weird, but hey, it's a game that can express creativity. I tried to spell out my channel name, but there's a stinking object limit. Oh well. And that's all for Thinkin Things. It's a simple collection of fun games that I got a kick out of as a kid. It accommodates kids of several ages too, so it's fun for kids to grow up with. Supposedly, the other collections target an older demographic, so I wonder if I would have enjoyed those as I got older. Anyway, now that we've reached the final 2 games for the video, let's talk. These are games that either had massive nostalgia value for me, or were difficult to find after the fact. So without further ado, here's Tamale Loco. Alright, let's dive headfirst into this one. Tamale Loco Rumble in the Desert 2 is a really weird game released in 2001 for Windows and macOS 9 by Shockwave.com. and it was developed by our good friends at Skunk Studios. I saved this one for second to last because it's so dang hard to find an installer anymore. On top of that, you can't purchase the game anymore, so if you want to play the unlocked version, you have to find another means of getting an unlocked key. The game centers around this little Mexican mouse named Tamale Loco as he vies for the heart of Esmeralda, but he has to appease her father first. Meanwhile, a kitty litter company that seems more like a cartel than anything wants to keep Tamale out of the desert and seize control of the mouse town. That's a bit to take in, I know, but the weirdness is only starting. Let's start at the beginning.
I want to hear a story. No? You don't.
The game's story begins with an elderly cat named Fang telling his grandkids the story of how he was tasked with keeping Tamale Loco out of the desert. Tamale's out there doing his usual Tamale thing, breaking the rules about using chips of death and all that, and he notices Esmeralda looking out her window at him. He promptly goes to the door and bangs on it, interrupting her father's burrito dinner. He opens the door to find an overconfident Tamale stating he wants to take Esmeralda on a date.
You want to take my peaches for a date? You gotta make me happy first. And what makes me happy, my little banana hat friend?
Donkey poo?
What? That does it, I'm leaving.
Long story short, Esmeralda's father wants burritos. He loves them so much that he has a framed picture on his wall of him eating a burrito, and he'll talk about burritos even if nobody's listening. But this guy has the weirdest taste of burritos. He likes them with the standard stuff like rice and tomatoes and cheese, but he also puts sardines and strawberries and pickles and peanut butter in them. What kind of taste does this guy have? Also, where's the meat? Anyway, Tamale heads off to make him a truckload of burritos while Fang comes up with a plan to keep him out of the desert for the Big K. And he can do this because he's a
Top secret military man spend most of my time in a garbage can when the Big K calls. I'm his man. If Fang can't do it, no one can.
See what I mean about this game being really weird? They want it to feel like a Saturday morning cartoon, and you can tell they're trying their best with their 2000s casual game developer budget. We then get into the game itself, and it's a 2D platformer. However, it's got some of the most unconventional controls I've seen yet in a platformer. Take a standard game like Super Mario World, the controls make sense. Moving left and right is as easy as pressing one of those directions, whether you're in midair or not. What Tamale Loco does is have the ground control behave just like that, but once you're in midair, you have to press the opposite arrow key twice if you want to move backwards. See, pressing the opposite key once just stops Tamale in midair. That was so hard to get used to, and I can't say I like it very much. Playing this game makes me miss how fluid Super Mario World's controls were. Anyway, press and hold the left shift key to make Tamale run faster. Jumping is done by pressing the up arrow, and you can duck by pressing down. Press up again in midair to have Tamale float to the ground using his comically oversized sombrero, and press down to cancel it. You'll find easy chairs, launchers, and geysers along the way that can launch you upwards if you hold up right as you're bouncing off of them. You can also grab onto balloons that either float upward or downward. Be wary of bottomless pits though. That sound almost rivals Lego Yoda's scream in comedic value. Along the way, Tamale will run into the Big K's minions, so he will need to fight back. Tamale has 3 ways of attacking enemies. The first is by jumping on them as one traditionally would in a platformer, but it doesn't work on every enemy, specifically the ones that throw objects back at him. The second is by pressing Z to kick. This mainly works on enemies that approach you when you don't have enough room to jump on them. The third method is by throwing objects at enemies. There are 3 things you can collect that you use as weapons: hot peppers, chips of death, and flipping TNT boxes. Jeez, this game must take place in the same universe as the Roadrunner cartoons for that much TNT to be lying around. Anyway, when all else fails, pressing X to toss one of these bad boys will take care of anything. Press the spacebar to switch between weapons. There's only so much of these though, so only use them when necessary, especially near the end. Not today, plants. You're not gonna get... Also, be really careful when approaching enemies because the second main problem I have with this game is that Tamale doesn't have any iframes. You know, invincibility frames. That brief moment you have to gather your bearings after getting hit? Not here. If Tamale gets hit, he can just as easily get hit again. He can even be knocked so far backwards that he'll either lose all his health in one go, or fall into a bottomless pit. It's really annoying. But if you lose a life, look! Iframes! The game totally could have had a system for implementing iframes after getting hit, and it doesn't! Sheesh. Luckily, if he gets hit, he can grab a Loco soda, or whatever that is, to restore his health. Picking up another sombrero acts as an extra life, so keep an eye out for those. The goal of each level is simply to reach the end and ring the bell at the tower. The game makes it seem like you have to make burritos to clear a stage, but the burritos are actually optional. To make a burrito, you need at least 1 tortilla, 1 tomato, 1 onion, 1 helping of cheese, 1 helping of rice, and 1 helping of beans. You can also collect peanut butter, strawberries, pickles, and sardines, and they'll be added to any complete burrito, but they're not required to make one. The burritos simply act as bonus points at the end of the level, and Esmeralda's father will react in a different way in Tamale's mind based on how many you get. It's a very short game, shorter than I expected it to be. There are only 4 levels. The second level takes place in an oasis after Fang alerts the Big K that Tamale's on the move. Cue the picture the boss wasn't supposed to see, and holding up the wrong number of fingers when counting gags. Tamale ducks into the oasis to cool off, but the Big K sends more minions his way.
I'll be. Never seen a fella get eaten that fast.
Not much changes in the levels moving forward except for theme, so Tamale keeps up the pace of dodging baddies and making burritos through levels 2 and 3, the latter of which takes place in the mountains. Fang even calls his cousins the Mountain Lions for their help in stopping Tamale, but of course that fails? Eventually, Tamale makes enough burritos to appease Esmeralda's father, so he glides back and winds his head on the door. Nice going, dude. Unfortunately, while on their date, the Big K declares revenge on Tamale, knocking Esmeralda off the cliff. Tamale rescues her and gets a reward kiss, but she immediately slaps him afterward and tells him to stop the giant robot headed for Mousetown. Oh yeah, the Big K financed a giant robot to terrorize the town. Should have mentioned that. Anyway, Tamale runs out and puts a stop to Fang and the Mecha Cat. One thing of note here is that he has stun animations, so don't blow all your ammo by spamming it like I did the first time. Anyway, Fang is at the mercy of the Big K, who demands that he poke his eye out with a filthy stick? That came out of nowhere, but it explains why he has only one eye as a grandfather. Anyway, Tamale and Esmeralda go on a proper date afterwards, but Fang infiltrates with the fake waiter routine. The kids interrupt him and ask what's next in the story, but we then see an older Tamale across the street from them. Tamale and Fang start yelling at each other like old times, and the credits roll. Given the tone of the story, that's kinda how I expected it to end. The game also came with a level editor, allowing the kids of the 2000s to create their own Loco levels, which was probably necessary because the main game only had 4 levels. And boy, did I make some doozies. Let's just say I had no formal training designing levels and wanted to create bouts of pure torture. It's a good thing I didn't know how to share these levels as a kid because I would have had some angry people coming after me. So that's Tamale Loco. It's a unique game for sure, and while there are some things I really don't like about it, the rest of what's here is passable for a 2001 PC platformer. Well done, Skunk Studios. Now if only there was a modern means of playing the game. Ooh, somebody should remake it with better controls and better paced cutscenes. That would probably be a nice $5 for today's times. Okay guys, I've got one final game to show you. I saved this one for last because it eluded me for so long that I thought I made it up. I found it again, and I got massive nostalgia for playing it. Here for your entertainment is The Universe According to Virgil Reality. Developed by Kids World, The Universe According to Virgil Reality is basically a science activity book come to life with everyone's favorite obscure cartoon scientist, Virgil Reality.
Welcome to the universe according to Virgil. In case you haven't guessed, I'm Virgil.
Does his voice sound familiar? That's right, Virgil Reality is voiced by none other than Charles Fleischer, the voice of Roger Rabbit himself. It's nice to have a comical scientist that's actually funny and voiced well guide you around this place. But he's not alone. Bits the Cat is here as well as Cube, Dr. Reality's assistant and portable TV screen for showing videos about given subjects. You're given free reign to wander around his lab and beyond, even checking out space, the contents of a microscope, and his movie theater. That's where the meat of the game is. Exploring the lab and clicking anything that catches your eye is the name of the game here. Click on something and Virgil and Cube will tell you about it, usually accompanied by a video clip or two of someone else explaining the subject too. What helps here is that everyone has a sense of humor, including Virgil. I mean, how can someone be voiced by Charles Fleischer and not be funny?
That was a huge balloon. Can you imagine how tired you get if you had to blow it up all by yourself?
It just works, and that's the best thing about this game. It makes learning about scientific stuff like airplanes, microscopes, biology, balloons, blimps, dinosaurs, electricity, machines, and astronomy really fun. You can even make a microscope by learning about what pieces make one, then look at images of microscopic objects and creatures through it. In the theater, you can watch videos about scientists, inventors, and their inventions, which is really cool. I bet this is where I first learned about Einstein's theory of relativity. I was geeking out at the astronomy segment because while I already knew about these subjects, hearing voice clips and seeing videos of people who went to space as well as the pictures taken from planets like Jupiter and Saturn was so amazing. No wonder I like this game so much. Not to mention the songs. Oh yes, the songs. There are 3 songs in this game. The first is the biology song, which is about the study of biology and how biologists know something is alive.
It's got to grow. It's got to move and stay loose. It's got to eat. It's got to reproduce. It's got to respond to stimuli. It's got to breathe or it will die. Now the last vowel is kind of discreet. It's got to.
Ooh, forgot about that part. The next is Everything's Connected, which is a song about how scientific discoveries and principles on their own actually link to each other in a web. It draws parallels to the universe and the microscopic beings and atoms that make up our bodies. It's nifty, and it's easily my favorite song in the game.
Ships among the stars, from wagon wheels to Saturn's rings. Science is a part of everything.
The last song is It Could Be You, an encouraging song that always plays over the credits about how the world is full of discoveries, and the next one could very well be made by the player.
Then the next thing that we see will be a great discovery made by you. Yes, it's true, it could be you.
All in all, Virtual Reality is excited about science and wants you to be excited about science as well. The game even comes with an encyclopedia, as well as a collection of experiments with instructions and visual games to show how that experiment can be done in real life. That's awesome, and I wish I knew about that feature when I played this as a kid. I think this is the perfect game for any kid interested in how the world works in a comedic and musical fashion that puts it up there with JumpStart and Sesame Street, if not surpassing their 1990s efforts. I gotta say, playing all these games again, especially Tamale, Loco, and Virtual Reality, takes me back to an era where not much mattered in the world. When I got home from school and my homework was done, or even before I started going to school, those games were my life. Whether I'm messing around on the Toonie Loon's xylophone, or destroying my left mouse button in Collapse, I knew how to have fun as a kid in the 2000s. About the next video, I had originally planned to make a special video for Sonic's 31st anniversary, but things never seem to go as planned, right? I have some backup plans for next month, so we'll see if I can make that work. If I end up not being able to make anything next month, don't be surprised, but I'll do my best. Whew, that was a lot of games to record. Some of these games you barely saw anything from what I recorded. I kept in the good stuff, of course. Anyway, I hope to have something presentable for next month, so see you then.